Hello everyone, this is Max with AM Website Pro, and today we're just going to go back to basics here, HTML5 form basics for beginners. And I have this little article that I've wrote. We're going to be using codes out of it, and we're also going to be using Notepad++. And you see here I'm starting with the bare bones HTML document, and we're going to be writing our code within the body here. In this, I have an actual processor on my local machine that I'm going to be using, the PHP processor. So that's going to help you understand better where I'm coming from. So there's a few things that a lot of people leave out whenever they start talking about HTML form and form processing. But there's a lot of great tutorials out there on HTML form elements. But this is just for the beginner, okay? The important thing to note is that we have the processor to process forms. So if you don't have some sort of processor on your server, it's not going to work. So some of the most popular ones are PHP, ASP.NET, Cold Fusion. They could actually process elements within forms. So I prefer the PHP processor because it's open source and that's the most popular. So the purpose of a form processor is to take the elements inside the form and then do something with them. But first you need to understand there's a method to it, okay? So when you start out with your form tag, you must specify a method. There's only two methods. There's post and there's get, all right? That's what you'll use with an HTML form tag. And here's the form tag with the get method, right? Here's a form tag with the post method. And let me go ahead and copy that, and I'll put this in this document right here, and I'm just going to save it. And if I refresh this page, you'll see there's nothing there. Okay, unless you right click and you have page source, and you can see I have a little form there. But that's because the form tag is invisible. You can't really see it. All right. So the next thing that you have to remember is that within the form tag there has to be an action. First you do the method, so this method is going to be post. Remember, we could use post or get. Now the action is maybe process page. That means after this form is processed, it's going to go to, or after this form is submitted, it's going to go to this page right here, processpage.php, to process whatever contents were entered into the form. So you need method, post, action, and then if you're going to send it to another page. However, you could actually process the form on the exact same page, okay? And I'm going to show you a complete example of that. So that would look like this, where you have your form tag, your method is post, but your action is just these double quotes right here. That means it's going to stay on the same page, and this is the most secure way to do it. A lot of people will use PHP server self or whatnot, but that's not necessary. All you need is two quotes and then your closing tag. All right, so excuse me. So there's different types of input types. There's like input type text, input type number, input type email, phone, password, and so on. There's a bunch of them. But here is, if I took this little thing right here, this little code example, and we'll put this in our Notepad++, and I'm going to just recopy, paste that in there, and I'm going to save it. And now whenever I hit refresh, you'll be able to see I got a little box in here, that I could do something in there. All right, a little thing that's not in the written tutorial that you could do is you can actually put it like a placeholder in there and tell the people that you want in there. And we'll do that in a minute, but as you scroll down here, you need to give an input type a name for processing. Okay, so this is the most important part of the process, is that you have to give it a name. And you notice this says name equals first name in quotes. All right, so we're going to be taking this variable. This turns into like a variable that whatever name that they enter into this box right here is going to get stored in this first name variable. This acts like a holder. You can name it whatever you want. All right. But whenever they start typing in, like if I typed in Maximus right here, Maximus is going to be held in this as a variable. It doesn't matter what you name it. We only name it first name just so that it, that it makes sense to us. Okay. Now the other thing that you want to do that I was talking about earlier is let's go ahead and copy this code right here that has the name element in there. All right, so And you could put placeholder. Placeholder equals, enter your first name or something like that, right? And then we could save that. And now notice what the placeholder does when we refresh the page. Maybe I didn't enter something correctly here. You have to spell it correctly. Placeholder. Okay, let's refresh it now. Now it says, this gives that little gray thing, enter your first name. So, and then when they start typing, right, it disappears. Okay, so that's a little side tip for you. Now, if you, the next thing that you're going to need is a submit button, right? Because if you look at our form here, there's nothing here to submit, So what you want to do is have a code like this: input type submit, name submit, value submit, right? And whenever you copy this code and then we put it in our Notepad++, we'll just put it in right here, and then I'll put that placeholder thing, placeholder equals enter first name, just like that. We'll save it, and then I'm going to refresh. You'll notice we get our button now. So they enter the first name and you hit submit. Now let's just go ahead and do this. If I enter Maximus and I hit submit, nothing happens. Well, you don't think anything happened, but something actually did happen, but we weren't processing the form. Okay, so the next thing that you'll need is a processor. Remember, in this particular one, we're using a PHP processor, but it could be ASP.NET or Cool Fusion. And we need this little code right here, okay? And I'll explain this code to you in a second. Now, if you want to copy and paste this complete code so you could do it yourself, I got it right here. But I'm just going to take this little section that we have, and I'm going to put it on top where the other one is. And I'm just going to go inside the body tag here and paste it. Now, what I'm doing here, okay, is let me put first name. Got to complete this code. Got to put it in between the quotes, okay? All right, so what I'm doing here is whatever name they enter in here, I'm storing it in the first name. And you notice whenever this thing gets submitted, it's going to refresh this page, and it's going to look to see if something was submitted. That's what this if is set, post submit. It's going to see if the submit button was clicked. If there's information that was brought to this page. It could be from another page or on the same page. But it's going to see if something was submitted from our input button right here, right? And then what it's going to do is it's going to grab the first name variable, whatever name they entered into this input, and it's going to print out on the page the name entered is and whatever the name is. So let's go ahead and check it out. And so we'll just put Maximus in here. Maximus just like that. Okay. And then we're going to hit submit. And you notice it says the name entered is Maximus. Okay. So that's how forms processed on there. Now you could do a bunch of stuff with, with this particular type of thing. If I wanted to add another input type, let's say an email, I would just duplicate that and put an email, right? And I'll put an email here, and then placeholder, enter email. And the good thing with HTML5 is that whenever you use elements like the input type email, and I don't put an actual email address, let me show you what happens. I'll refresh this page, I'll put Maximus, and I'll just put a bunch of characters. Now you'll notice it says here, please include an @ in the email address. See, so it goes and it detects if there is an email added. So after the email is added, you click submit. Now notice that the email address didn't come through. Why? Well, it's because that I didn't do anything with it, right? So what I want to do here is I could go to the end of this, and I'll tell you what, I'll just echo out a BR tag, which is a line break, just to keep it simple, right? And then right here, I'm going to copy this line, copy, I'm going to paste it right in here, but in here I'm just going to put email. So what's that going to do? Well, the thing it's going to do, it's going to look for a variable called email. You notice I'm storing the email in here, and then I'll say the email entered is whatever, and then whatever you put it, whatever the user will put in that box. So let me go ahead and refresh this page. Okay, Maximus, and then we'll put the email. Maybe maximusmccullough29@gmail, and I'll hit submit. Now it says the name entered is Maximus. The email entered is maximusmccullough29. So you can see how powerful that is. And if you have a server or whatever, an email, you could actually use this to email information. You could pretty much do anything that you want within this particular thing. So what you want to do, just experiment, take this around. You can experiment with different types of input fields. There's a text area that you can use. There's drop downs, check boxes, radio buttons, and whatnot. And so I'll have more tutorials on form elements and how to use them, but I just wanted to get the basics out of the way and have this all dummied down so somebody could understand it. So once again, you need a processor. If you want to do anything with the information. Because if you don't have a processor like PHP, Cold Fusion, or ASP.NET, it's not going to be able to process this information. Okay, it's not going to be able to do this. You could do this, you could have form elements, but it can't process. Okay, an HTML form method tag, that's the method where, if we look at our code here, we're using the method of post, right? So we only need that one time, too. We don't need that 2 times. And then you should only have one form tag closing it out, just like that. Okay, so you need a method of post, and then this action tag. When we leave nothing in there, it's going to post the form on the same page, and then you have to have a processor like this to process the information. The most important part of the inputs is the name. You have to give them a name equals. So, and then you can name this whatever you want. Okay. But whatever you name this, you're going to put this up in the form of a post variable if you use PHP. So you'll notice that first name is brought in as post, square brackets, single quotes, first name. And then the same thing with email. Okay? And then the submit button, we're going to check. We've got to make sure it has a name too, because right up here it's checking to see if something's submit. Now you can change this to, BBB, and if this is BBB up here, it's going to check and see if BBB was submitted. All right? It doesn't have to say submit, and I'll just show you. I'll save that. Go back to localhost. Now I have them as BBB. Now it's going to check and see if BBB was submitted, and we'll do the same thing, max, and then test@email.com, so you can see that it's something different. See, now check to see if BBB was submitted. So you can name that whatever you want. These names you can name whatever you want. Okay, but remember, whenever you're using that button, though, you got to give it a name, and it has to be the same thing as up here. All right, this is Max with AM Website Pro. I hope this helped you explain better, how forms are used, how they're processed, how to put input type fields in it, and I'll have some more tutorials on this in the future to help people get a better understanding of it. Thanks.